I'm Tariq Melrose, and if today's story taught me anything, it's that some officials are less interested in solving problems and more interested in narrating them badly. We've got dramatics, deflections, and a sprinkling of selective outrage, but no real answers. So let's talk about what really happened. Subscribe now, because empty speeches don't build trust, but exposing them might.
If you want a snapshot of how the GOP turns hearings into conspiracy carnivals, buckle up, because this one had everything. Hunter Biden laptop lies, deep state fever dreams, and even a detour into Jeffrey Epstein. It's a masterclass in distraction and political theater over truth.
Mr. Director, worry not. We'll make sure your agency is adequately funded. This judge you arrested in Wisconsin, she was breaking federal law, wasn't she?
Yes, that's why we arrested her.
She was helping an illegal immigrant escape being taken into custody. Is that right?
Yes, and the field agents decided to open the case, work the case.
And as Americans, do we get to pick and choose which laws we want to follow?
We do not.
If you're a state court judge, do you get to decide you don't want to follow federal law?
No.
And if you violate federal law, you get arrested, don't you?
Yes, Senator.
That's called equal treatment under the law, isn't it?
Yes, Senator.
You remember Lisa Page and Peter Strzok, don't you?
Yes, Senator.
Mr. Strzok worked for the FBI. Mr. Strzok worked for the FBI. I think Ms. Page worked for Justice. The Inspector General found in its investigation that they hated President Trump, and they really wanted Secretary Clinton to win. Is that true?
That's correct, sir.
And this would be the same same Ms. Page who sent an email to Mr. Strzok with whom she was having an affair. Trump's not ever going to become president, right? Right? And Mr. Strzok with the FBI, senior official at the FBI, replied, quote, no, he won't. We'll stop it. Did I read that correctly?
You did, Senator.
Okay. Now, Ms. Page got quit before she could get fired. Mr. Strzok was fired. And predictably, they filed a lawsuit because in Washington, it's easier to divorce your spouse than it is to fire a federal employee. Why did the FBI give Mr. Strzok $1.2 million and Ms. Page $800,000 to settle a lawsuit?
Senator, I do not know that settlement was reached in the prior administration.
Who made the decision?
The prior Department of Justice.
Who in the prior Department of Justice?
The settlement for that kind of case can only come from the Attorney General, which would be Attorney General Merrick Garland.
So the Attorney General decided to give Mr. Strzok $1.2 million and Ms. Page $800,000 after they were fired after actively interfering in the 2016 election. Is that right?
My understanding is that was a settlement they agreed to.
Pass me the sick bucket, please. The Hunter Biden laptop. In October of 2016, shortly before the election, the New York Post wrote a story that was widely covered talking about Mr. Hunter Biden's influence peddling scheme based on his laptop. A couple of weeks later, Secretary of State, soon-to-be Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, organized a group of 51 so-called intelligence experts. Had some real rock stars on the list. Jim Clapper, John Brennan, Michael Hayden, Leon Panetta, and they said, oh, no, the story in the New York Post is not true. It's based on Russian disinformation. You remember that?
I do, Senator, as the lead investigator for Russiagate for the House Intel Committee.
Yeah. The FBI had the laptop for 10 months, hadn't they?
They did, Senator.
So the FBI knew right before the election that it wasn't Russian disinformation, didn't they?
And that was confirmed by the Inspector General's report.
Yeah. Who at the FBI refused to let the FBI tell the American people the truth?
I don't have that name in front of me, sir.
Well, would you look?
I will, sir.
I'd like to know. I'd like a name, not a division. I'd like the name. Person with a brain and a beating heart.
Yes, sir.
Did Jeffrey Epstein hang himself or did somebody kill him?
Senator, I believe he hung himself in a cell in the Metropolitan Detention Center.
Are you going to release all the information about that?
Senator, we are working through that right now with the Department of Justice.
When do you think you'll have it done, Cash?
I think in the near future, sir.
Like before I die?
Senator, we've been working on that, and we're doing it in a way that protects victims and also doesn't put out into the ether information that is irrelevant for production to the public, such as CSAM.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Reid.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Director. As you're well aware, DOJ.
Let's be crystal clear. What we just heard wasn't a serious attempt to oversee the FBI. This was a performance, a carefully staged Republican hit job designed to feed MAGA media loops and keep their base locked in a permanent state of outrage. First, look at how this senator opens. A Wisconsin judge arrested for allegedly helping an undocumented immigrant avoid ICE custody. Now, if that happened, there's a legitimate process for it. Investigate, charge, try the case in court. But here, it's framed as an opening shot in a morality play. Do we get to pick and choose which laws we want to follow? Coming from the same political faction that literally encouraged states to ignore federal gun laws, that's rich. This isn't about equal treatment under the law. It's about selective outrage. When it's sanctuary cities or immigrant rights, suddenly they're strict constitutionalists. When it's ignoring environmental regulations or COVID safety mandates, they're defenders of liberty. From there, we get the reheated 2016 Clinton-Trump conspiracy stew, Peter Starzok and Lisa Page. Republicans have been flogging this one for years. 2 FBI employees having an affair, sending personal texts about Trump. Yes, they expressed personal opinions, as Americans are allowed to do, but the Inspector General already found no evidence their political views affected the investigation. Yet, here, the senator conveniently skips that conclusion. Why? Because that would puncture the inflated narrative that the deep state sabotaged Trump. Then there's the manufactured outrage over settlement payouts to Strzok and Page. The settlements happened under the prior Justice Department, and if this senator actually cared about why, he'd ask about legal precedent, civil service protections, and the cost-benefit calculation DOJ makes to avoid drawn-out litigation. But those details don't fit the script. So instead, we get the melodrama. Pass me the sick bucket. This isn't investigative rigor, it's talk radio theatrics. And of course, no Republican grievance parade is complete without dusting off the Hunter Biden laptop. They recite the same talking points. The New York Post story, the 51 former intelligence officials suggesting it looked like Russian disinformation, the fact that the FBI had the laptop for months. They leave out critical context. Those former officials didn't declare the story false. They warned it had the hallmarks of a Russian op, a legitimate concern given active interference in 2016. But to the MAGA narrative machine, that becomes a smoking gun in a massive conspiracy to protect Biden. Here's what's missing. The reason why the FBI doesn't blast out investigative details weeks before an election, the Justice Department's own policy to avoid influencing the outcome. It's the same principle James Comey infamously broke in 2016 when he spoke publicly about the Clinton email probe. That one helped Trump, and Republicans didn't complain. But in 2020, when the same caution applied to Biden, suddenly it's corruption. The hypocrisy here is breathtaking. Notice also the way this senator demands a name of the person who supposedly refused to tell the truth. This isn't about process or institutional safeguards. It's a public shaming tactic. Republicans have been doing this for years. Drag individual public servants into the political spotlight, smear them, and watch the death threats roll in from the base. It's intimidation as a political tool. Then, in a move straight out of the conspiracy monger playbook, we veer into Jeffrey Epstein's death. Now, whatever you believe about Epstein, this has nothing to do with FBI oversight or the topics discussed moments earlier. It's a bait and switch. Toss in a salacious, unresolved story to juice the viral potential of the exchange. The goal isn't to clarify facts, it's to insinuate corruption, keep the audience hooked, and make the officials squirm. This is exactly how MAGA politicians weaponize hearings, cherry-pick facts that fit a narrative and omit exculpatory context, conflate unrelated topics to make everything look like part of a sprawling conspiracy, target individuals for public vilification to erode trust in institutions, perform outrage rather than seek actual solutions. Let's also talk about the tone. This isn't questioning meant to elicit information, it's cross-examination meant for sound bites. The senator tosses out loaded questions, cuts off answers, and peppers in sarcastic asides. Pass me the sick bucket before I die, because the performance is the point. The audience isn't the witness, it's the Fox News producers clipping the segment for prime time. And make no mistake, this isn't harmless political theater. This steady drumbeat of half-truths, innuendo, and selective outrage erodes public faith in the very institutions that safeguard democracy. When the FBI becomes just another enemy in the MAGA narrative, lumped in with the media, the courts, the deep state, it primes the base to reject any law enforcement action against Trump or his allies as illegitimate. We saw this after the Mar-a-Lago search warrant, when armed Trump supporters targeted FBI field offices. We saw it on January 6th, when Back the Blue Republicans turned on police officers who stood between them and their coup attempt. This rhetoric has consequences: real threats, real violence, real destabilization. The irony here is suffocating. The same Republicans who rail against picking and choosing which laws to follow are perfectly fine when their side ignores court orders, defies subpoenas, or trashes law enforcement for investigating right-wing crimes. Equal justice under the law. In their hands, it's a slogan, not a principle. And this Epstein tangent, it's not about truth-seeking. If they wanted answers, they'd demand full transparency from Bureau of Prisons leadership, subpoena relevant staff, examine procedural failures. But no, the point is to wink at a favored conspiracy theory, to let the base fill in the blanks with whatever sinister fantasy they prefer. It's cheap and it's corrosive. Here's the bigger truth. This hearing segment was never about holding the FBI accountable. It was about keeping the GOP grievance machine well-oiled. It's about turning oversight into a spectacle where the enemy is always the same: Democrats, the deep state, anyone who dares to investigate Trump. And it's about making sure the base's anger never cools, because anger is what drives the MAGA political engine. What we saw here wasn't governance. It wasn't accountability. It was a Republican senator turning a hearing into a conspiracy buffet, reheating the Hunter Biden laptop, serving up 2016's deep state fantasies, and garnishing the whole mess with a sprinkle of Jeffrey Epstein. This isn't about truth, it's about performance, keeping MAGA voters hooked on a steady diet of outrage and distrust. The selective application of equal treatment under the law is telling. When immigrants or Democrats are involved, it's ironclad. When it's Trump world, suddenly rules are negotiable. This isn't oversight, it's sabotage of public trust. And every time they do this, it makes it harder for the truth to break through the noise, for the law to be applied evenly, and for democracy to function without the constant drag of weaponized disinformation. That's the game, and they're playing it shamelessly. Don't let this kind of political theater go unchallenged. Share this video, drop your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe So you're here for the next fact-based takedown of MAGA's disinformation circus. The truth won't spread itself. It needs all of us pushing back every single time.